Have you ever imagined an ordinary husband working as a car mechanic facing betrayal from his wife and a lover who dares to touch his daughter? Follow along on his journey to protect his family and deliver justice in a smart way, making the villains pay a heavy price. Jonathan Steele ran his hand over the metal surface, his calloused fingers detecting tiny scratches invisible to the naked eye. The auto shop echoed with the sounds of machinery, but to him it was a symphony he'd conducted for 20 years. Grease stained his dark blue work shirt, settling into the creases of his muscled forearms. "Dad, look what I made." Sophia's voice cut through the mechanical hum. His 15-year-old daughter held up a homemade wrench, her green eyes shining with pride. Jonathan set down his tools and wiped his hands on his coveralls. "Let me check that handiwork." He inspected the tool, noting the sturdy welds and smooth finish. "You're improving. These connections are spot on. I learned from the best." Sophia hopped onto the workbench, her legs swinging freely. "Mom called. She's not coming home for dinner again. Some fundraiser with Rebecca." Jonathan's jaw clenched subtly. "Then it's just us tonight, kid. How about firing up the grill?" Elizabeth's absences were no longer surprising. Her social schedule had exploded over the past year, packed with events that multiplied endlessly. She came from old money, the kind that looked down on blue-collar workers like him. He remembered the day she walked into his shop, all designer clothes and flawless nails, ordering a custom restoration on a vintage car. "You sure about the parts?" he'd asked, noting her expensive tastes. "I recognize quality when I see it," she'd replied, tracing her fingers along a finished fender. "And your work, it's outstanding." They'd fallen hard and fast. She'd seen beyond his rough exterior, or so he'd thought. He'd given her everything: his heart, his trust, his loyalty. Values forged in the foster system where betrayal meant survival, and trust was a rare luxury. The buzz of Sophia's phone snapped him from his memories. Her face shifted as she read the message, color draining away. "What's wrong, kid?" Jonathan asked, setting the tool aside. Sophia's fingers trembled slightly. "It's nothing, Dad." Sophia, his voice carried gentle authority mixed with concern. She hesitated, then turned the phone toward him. On the screen was a group chat. "OMG, just saw Mrs. Steele at La Mer with Victor Lang. They looked super cozy." Jonathan's face stayed neutral, but something dark stirred in his eyes. "Who's Victor Lang?" "He's that stock investor always in the local news. Mom mentioned him at dinner last month." Sophia's voice was small. "Dad, it's probably just business," Jonathan said, but his mind was already cataloging the signs he'd ignored: late nights, new outfits, distant stares. "What if it's not?" Sophia asked, her voice cracking. Jonathan placed his hands on her shoulders, his grip firm yet tender. "Then we face it together like always." He pulled her into a hug, his large frame enveloping hers. Over her head, his expression hardened into something dangerous, a glimpse of the man he'd been before this peaceful life. Later that night, after Sophia went to bed, Jonathan sat in his shop, an untouched glass of whiskey beside him. He pulled out his phone and opened social media, something he rarely did. There it was, a photo from 2 weeks ago at a fundraiser gala. Elizabeth glowing in a red dress, standing next to a tall man with slicked back hair and an expensive suit. Victor Lang. Caption: Maple Ridge's elite supporting community education. Jonathan zoomed in on their body language, the subtle lean toward each other. Victor's hand resting familiarly near Elizabeth's waist, his fingers tightened around the phone until his knuckles whitened. The next morning, Elizabeth swept into the kitchen as Jonathan prepared breakfast. She wore yoga pants and a designer top, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. "Jonathan, we need to talk about what Sophia saw," she said, pouring coffee. "Do we?" He cracked eggs into a pan, his movements controlled. "It's not what you think. Victor and I were discussing the community center project. Rebecca and others were there too." She touched his arm. "You know how small towns gossip?" Jonathan turned, his dark eyes studying her face. "Were they?" Elizabeth's smile faltered slightly. "Of course. Don't be paranoid, darling. It doesn't suit you." He noted the slight tremor in her hand as she lifted her cup, the way she avoided his gaze. In foster homes, he'd learned to read people's tells, spotting lies before they turned into backstabs. "You're right," he said, his voice deliberately calm. "Small towns do gossip." Relief flashed across her face too quickly. "Exactly. Now I have a lunch meeting, but I'll be home for dinner." As she left, Jonathan watched through the window, seeing her check her phone immediately in the car. His hands, still strong from years of wrenching engines, gripped the counter edge. He'd built this life from nothing, crafted it as carefully as his finest repairs. If someone was trying to tear it apart, they'd learn why he'd earned the nickname the Iron Fist long before becoming a mechanic. The morning blurred with work orders and deliveries. Jonathan immersed himself in the rhythm of his trade, letting familiar motions soothe the rage simmering beneath. Around noon, his phone buzzed with a text from Michael Forge. "Saw your wife's car at the Golden Oak Hotel yesterday. Wasn't going to mention it, but after what you said about the restaurant." Jonathan arrived at Forge's garage 30 minutes later. Michael was under a car rock music blasting from corner speakers. He rolled out at the sound of Jonathan's boots on concrete. "Brother," Michael said, wiping his hands on a rag. His muscled build recalled military days, his eyes holding the same hardness as Jonathan's. "Saw your wife's car at the Golden Oak Hotel yesterday. Wasn't planning to say anything, but after the restaurant story..." Jonathan's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "What time?" "Around 2. She wasn't alone. Michael met his friend's gaze steadily. "Need backup?" "Not yet." Jonathan clasped his shoulder. "But keep your phone on." The afternoon passed with Jonathan processing the new info. He thought of the man he'd been before, the one who fixed problems with fists. Not words, the one who'd learned in foster care that violence was sometimes the only language people understood. He'd buried that man when he met Elizabeth, remade himself into someone worthy of her love. Now, as doubt gnawed at his carefully built life, he felt that old darkness rising. If his suspicions proved true, someone would discover why they called him the Iron Fist, and not for his mechanical skills. Jonathan stood in his shop grinding a metal piece for a custom auto part. The rhythmic motion calmed his mind, but the tension in his shoulders revealed his unease. The morning conversation with Elizabeth had left him unsettled, her excuses too polished, too rehearsed. His phone rang with Sophia's tone cutting through his thoughts. He glanced at the time, 2:15 p.m. She should be in class. "Sophia, what's up?" Her voice came through, trembling, thick with tears. "Dad, Mom's boyfriend is here." Jonathan's hand froze on the sandpaper. "What? He says you're not coming back and he's my new dad." A crash echoed in the background, followed by male laughter. "He tried to touch me, but I kicked him. Now he's smashing stuff and saying he'll teach me obedience." The sandpaper crumpled in Jonathan's fist. "Where are you?" "In my room." "I locked the door." Another crash closer. "He's laughing and saying you're too weak to stop him." "Listen carefully." Jonathan's voice turned to steel. "Stay in your room. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. I'm on my way." He ended the call and moved with deadly intent to the back of the shop. Behind a false panel wrapped in oiled cloth was his grandfather's pistol. He'd kept it as a reminder of the man who taught him family protection came above all. The drive home was a blur of contained fury. Jonathan's knuckles whitened on the wheel as past memories surfaced. Foster homes, where the strong preyed on the weak, where guys like Victor thought they could take anything. He pulled into the driveway, noting Elizabeth's car and a luxury SUV he didn't recognize. The front door was ajar, and through it, he heard Victor's voice. "Come out, little girl. Daddy's home." Jonathan entered silently, pistol held low but ready. The living room was trashed with broken furniture and scattered items. Elizabeth stood near the stairs, her face pale. "Jonathan," she gasped, "this isn't what it looks like." He ignored her, focusing on the man at the top of the stairs. Victor Lang in his $1,000 suit turned at Elizabeth's voice, his handsome face splitting into a mocking grin. "Well, if it isn't the grease monkey here to see how a real man handles business." Victor spread his arms wide. "Your wife has been telling me all about how inadequate you are." Jonathan took the stairs 2 at a time, his movements fluid and predatory. Victor's grin faltered as he realized the approaching man wasn't the passive mechanic he'd expected. "Jonathan, please," Elizabeth called from below, "let's talk this out." Victor backed up, his bravado cracking. "Hold on, this is all a misunderstanding." Jonathan's voice was terrifyingly quiet. "You touched my daughter." "I didn't. I was just messing around." Victor's back hit the wall. "Elizabeth, tell him." But Jonathan wasn't listening. The rage he'd contained for years broke free. The pistol's butt connected with Victor's jaw in a brutal swing, dropping him to the floor. Blood splattered the wall as Victor's head snapped back. "Dad!" Sophia's voice came through her bedroom door. "Stay inside, sweetheart." Jonathan called his tone gentle despite the violence. Then to Victor's groaning form, "Get up!" Victor tried to crawl away, but Jonathan grabbed his collar and dragged him toward the stairs. Each step down drew pained grunts from the investor. "Jonathan, stop!" Elizabeth rushed forward. "You'll kill him." Jonathan paused at the bottom, Victor's collar still in his iron grip. He turned to his wife and she recoiled from the cold fury in his eyes. "You brought this into our home," he said, his voice eerily calm. "You let this man near our daughter. I didn't know he would. She started. You never know, do you, Elizabeth?" He hauled Victor toward the door. "You never think about consequences, about loyalty, about trust." Victor struggled, but Jonathan slammed his face into the wall. "Please," Victor whimpered, blood dripping from his split lip. "I'll leave. You'll never see me again. You're right about that." Jonathan dragged him outside and threw him onto the driveway. Victor scrambled toward his SUV, but Jonathan's next words froze him. "If you ever come near my family again, what happened today will feel like a spa treatment." Elizabeth stood in the doorway, tears streaming. "Jonathan, I can explain everything." He turned to her, and for the first time she saw the man beneath the everyday mechanic's facade, the survivor of foster homes and street fights, the one they called the Iron Fist. "Pack your bags," he said. "You have an hour. After that, if you're still here, I'll toss you out myself." "You can't do this," she protested. "This is my house too. This house," Jonathan's laugh held no humor. "I built this home with my own hands. I built this life while you were busy tearing it down." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "And now I'll take everything from you, slowly, piece by piece, until you know what it feels like to lose all you hold dear." He turned away and climbed the stairs to Sophia's room, his knuckles white on the pistol, but when he knocked, his voice was soft. "Sophia, it's Dad. You can open up now." The door cracked open, and Sophia peeked out. Seeing her father, she flung herself into his arms, sobbing. Jonathan held her tight, stroking her hair. "It's okay, baby. I'm here. No one's hurting you." "I was so scared," she whispered into his chest. "I know, but you were brave. So brave." He pulled back to look at her. "Pack a bag." "Okay, we're staying with Uncle Michael for a few days." As Sophia packed, Jonathan heard Elizabeth moving downstairs, her heels clicking on the floor. He pulled out his phone and dialed Michael. "Forge, I need a favor. Come to my place, bring the truck and some guys. Things are about to get messy." The evening sun cast an orange glow over Michael's garage as Jonathan sat on a worn leather couch, watching Sophia sleep. She'd finally dozed off after hours of tears and questions he couldn't fully answer. Michael entered quietly, 2 beers in hand. "She's tough like her old man," Michael said, offering a can. Jonathan took it, but didn't drink. "I should have seen it coming, brother. Some snakes hide well until they're ready to strike." Michael replied, settling into a chair across from him. "Question is, what are you gonna do now?" Before Jonathan could answer, his phone buzzed. Elizabeth's name flashed. He declined only for it to buzz again, immediately and again. "You should hear her out," Michael suggested. "Might be useful." Jonathan answered on the 4th ring, putting it on speaker. Elizabeth's voice filled the garage, desperate and pleading. "Jonathan, please come home. We can talk. Victor's in the hospital. You could get arrested." "Are you threatening me?" Jonathan's voice stayed eerily calm. "No, I'm trying to protect you. Victor's dad has power. He's asking questions. If you just apologize." Jonathan cut her off. "Apologize for defending my daughter from the man you brought home." It wasn't like that. Victor was just what Jonathan's voice dropped dangerously low. "Just trying to teach my daughter obedience." Those were his words, right? Silence hung on the line. "Listen closely, Elizabeth, because I'll say this once. Our marriage is over. You're not welcome in my house. You're not welcome near my daughter. And if you or Victor threaten me again," he paused, letting it sink in. "Think carefully. You saw what happens when someone threatens my family. Jonathan." "Please," she whispered. "I love you." He laughed, a sound without warmth. "No, you love what I provided, status, stability, a cover for your affairs. But you never loved me." His voice hardened. "And that was your biggest mistake." "What do you mean, you'll see?" "Everything you built on lies, your social standing, your reputation, your comfortable life. I'm taking it all away, slowly, carefully, until you know what it's like to lose everything you cherish. You wouldn't dare," she hissed, her pleading tone turning to anger. "I'll ruin you." "You can try." Jonathan's voice carried the weight of his promise. "But remember, I learned long ago how to survive, how to fight. You've just been playing at life, Elizabeth. Now you'll learn what losing means." He ended the call and turned to Michael. "I need help fixing the house. Victor did some damage. I've got your back." Michael said, standing, "But what's the plan?" Jonathan rose, his silhouette sharp under the garage lights. "First, document everything the home damage, Victor's threats, all of it. Then get a restraining order, not just on Victor, but Elizabeth too. I don't want her near Sophia after this. She won't take that lying down." "No," Jonathan agreed, his eyes hardening. "She won't. That's what I'm counting on." They drove back to the house, finding it empty but still scarred from the afternoon's violence. Shattered furniture dents in the walls where Victor had raged. Jonathan moved through the room, snapping photos with his phone, his jaw tightening at each new sign of destruction. In Sophia's room, he found her books scattered, her desk overturned. The sight of her violated space made his hands shake with fresh fury. Michael appeared in the doorway, reading his friend's face. "We'll fix it all," Michael assured. "Make it better than before." Jonathan nodded, but his mind raced ahead. "She'll try to spin this, paint me as the violent one, the unstable foster kid who snapped. Let her try." Michael said, "Writing furniture. Folks here know you how you are with Sophia, how you've built your business. They won't buy it." As if on cue, Jonathan's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, a link to a social media post from Elizabeth's account. She'd started her campaign posting about escaping abuse and how appearances deceive. Jonathan showed Michael. "See, it begins. What are you doing?" Jonathan pocketed his phone, his expression cold but determined. "Nothing yet. Let her make her moves. Let her think she's winning. The bigger the lie, the harder the fall." They worked late into the night, restoring order. As they cleared the last debris, Jonathan paused, holding a framed photo found under the mess. It showed him Elizabeth and Sophia at a family picnic 2 years ago. They looked happy, normal. It had all been a facade. He set the photo face down on a shelf. "Michael, one more favor. Name it. Take Sophia to school tomorrow. I need to handle some arrangements and I don't want her alone." Michael nodded, understanding the unspoken worry. "Think Victor might try something?" "No," Jonathan said, his voice edged with danger. "He's a coward, but Elizabeth, she's desperate now. And desperate people do stupid things." Later that night, after Michael left and the house quieted, Jonathan sat in his shop. The familiar smells of oil and metal surrounded him, but brought no peace tonight. He pulled out his phone and started noting names, dates, connections, everything he knew about Victor Lang, Elizabeth's social circle, their habits and routines. In foster care, he'd learned knowledge was power. To survive, you had to know your enemies better than they knew themselves. He'd buried those skills when he married Elizabeth, trying to be the man she claimed to want. Now, cataloging her betrayals, he felt the old abilities returning. The sound of a car passing slowly made him look up. Through the shop window, he glimpsed Elizabeth's red BMW. She was watching, probably hoping for signs of regret or weakness. Instead, Jonathan stood in full view and stared directly at her car. Even from afar, he knew she felt his gaze's weight. The car sped away, and Jonathan allowed a grim smile. She'd come seeking cracks in his armor signs. She could manipulate him back in line. Instead, she'd found the man he'd been the one called the Iron Fist staring back. Tomorrow he'd start dismantling her carefully constructed world, but tonight, preparations. He opened his laptop and drafted an email to his lawyer. Subject: emergency restraining order request, domestic violence. The night's quiet enveloped him as he worked, broken only by typing and the old house's creaks. Upstairs in Sophia's room, a light still burned. She'd asked to sleep at home tonight, wanting to reclaim her space. Her courage swelled his heart with pride, even as it fueled his resolve. They'd tried to invade his world, shatter what he'd built. Now they'd learn why that was a grave mistake. Jonathan Iron Fist Steele hadn't earned his nickname through weakness, and by the time he was done, both Elizabeth and Victor would understand exactly what they'd awakened. As dawn's first hints colored the sky, Jonathan finally closed his laptop. Phase 1, complete legal groundwork, laid trap set. Now, wait for their next move. And they would, people like Elizabeth and Victor always did. Their pride wouldn't allow otherwise. He climbed the stairs quietly, checking on Sophia before his room. She was asleep at last, her face peaceful despite the day's trauma. Jonathan lingered in her doorway, his expression softening as he watched her breathe. "I promise," he whispered. "They'll never hurt you again." It was a vow he intended to keep no matter the cost. The peaceful life he'd built might be shattered, but from its ruins he'd forged something stronger, unbreakable. and anyone trying to harm his family again would learn why he'd once been feared on the streets that raised him. Jonathan sat in Michael's garage office surrounded by stacks of papers and multiple computer screens. His fingers drummed the metal desk as he reviewed financial records, property deals, and social media posts. These investment contracts, Michael pointed to a document. Victor's firm won them without proper bidding. My contact at City Hall says there's more dirt if we dig. Jonathan leaned forward, studying the figures. Who's your contact? Remember Jimmy from the service? He works in records now. Says Victor's paperwork is too clean, like it was scrubbed. Get me everything he has. Jonathan checked his phone. 3 missed calls from Elizabeth, a text from his lawyer about the restraining order. How's security at Sophia's school? My team's watching. No sign of Victor or Elizabeth. Michael crossed his arms. But there's talk. Elizabeth's friend Rebecca is spreading stories. Jonathan's jaw tightened. What kind? The usual playbook. You're unstable, violent. She's portraying Elizabeth as a trapped woman who finally escaped her abusive husband. Michael snorted. Nobody's buying it, but she's persistent. Let them talk. Jonathan opened another file. While they're spinning yarns, we'll build our case. Victor's dad wants answers. He'll get them. A knock at the garage door interrupted. One of Michael's mechanics stood there looking uneasy. Boss, Mrs. Steele's outside, says she needs to talk to her husband. Jonathan and Michael exchanged glances. Through the office window, they saw Elizabeth pacing by her car, phone to her ear. Want me to send her away? Michael asked. No. Jonathan stood deliberately. I want to hear the tale she's telling now. He walked out to meet her, noting how she'd dressed for effect, expensive clothes, perfect makeup, the image of a distraught wife. She ended her call as he approached. Jonathan, she said, voice shaking. Victor's dad is asking questions. He's threatening to involve police. Is that why you're here, to warn me? His tone held no emotion. Or to threaten me. I'm trying to help you. She stepped closer, reaching for his arm. He stepped back and she flinched at the coldness in his eyes. Victor's dad has connections. He could destroy you. Like you tried to destroy our daughter. Elizabeth's composure cracked. That wasn't my fault. I didn't know Victor. Would you never know, do you? Jonathan's voice lowered. You didn't know he was violent, didn't know he'd threaten a child. Tell me, what do you know? I know you're angry, she said, trying to regain control. But think about your business, your reputation. If you back off now, we can handle this quietly. Jonathan laughed, a sound that made her retreat. My reputation? You mean the one your friend Rebecca is trying to trash? He moved closer, his presence intimidating despite the calm tone. Here's what's happening. You're going to call off your attack dog, stop the rumors, or I start sharing the truth, all of it. You wouldn't dare. It would hurt your precious reputation, too. The difference is, I don't care about reputation. I care about justice. He pulled out his phone, showing her a document. Remember this investment deal? The one Victor pushed through without proper bidding. Wonder what the DA would think of those numbers. Color drained from Elizabeth's face. How did you? I learned a lot in foster care. How to spot a scam, gather evidence, be patient. He pocketed the phone. You and Victor played games with people's lives. Now you'll learn what happens when someone plays back, Jonathan. Please, she whispered, her mask crumbling. We can fix this. No, we can't, but I can fix what you broke. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Elizabeth, tell Rebecca that if one more rumor about me surfaces, I'll start sharing what I know about her husband's offshore accounts. He walked away, leaving her staring. Inside the garage, Michael waited. She'll run straight to Victor. Good. Jonathan grabbed his jacket. Let them panic. Desperate people make mistakes. Later that evening, Jonathan received a text from an unknown number containing a video security footage from Lemaire showing Elizabeth and Victor in an intimate moment months ago. Another text followed. There's more. Thought you'd want to know what else they're hiding. Jonathan forwarded it to his lawyer, then called Michael. We've got another player, someone sharing proof of the affair. Friend or foe? Michael asked. Doesn't matter, we'll use it all. Jonathan opened his laptop, starting a new document. Time to show them what real revenge looks like. Across town, Elizabeth sat in her hotel room, frantically dialing Victor. When he finally answered, his voice slurred with pain meds. They're digging into the contracts, she said without preamble. Jonathan knows about the bidding process. Impossible. Victor groaned. Those records were cleaned. Well, he has them, and he's not stopping there. She paced. Your dad's pressure isn't working. If anything, it's making him more determined. Then push harder, Victor said. Get Rebecca to amp up the stories, paint him as a monster. You don't understand. He knows about Rebecca's husband's accounts. He's 3 steps ahead. Silence lingered. Then Victor spoke heavily. My dad can't know about those contracts if this gets out. What do we do? Whatever it takes. I'm not letting some mechanic destroy everything I've built. But as Elizabeth ended the call, she felt real fear stirring for the first time. She'd seen something in Jonathan's eyes today. Not anger, not hurt, but cold, calculated purpose. She remembered when they first met the hints of his past he'd shared. She'd thought she'd tamed that part of him. Now she realized she'd tamed nothing. He'd simply chosen to be different, to be better, and she'd destroyed that choice. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. We need to talk. Things are getting complicated. Elizabeth stared at the message, realizing her carefully built world was unraveling. She'd thought Jonathan would crack rage and storm, giving her the ammo to destroy him. Instead, he was dismantling her life piece by piece with the patience he used to fix cars. She'd wanted more than his simple life offered. Now, she was learning simple didn't mean weak, and she'd underestimated the man she'd married in ways she was only beginning to grasp. The news broke on a Tuesday morning. Local investor faces probe over fraudulent contracts screamed the headlines. Jonathan read the article with satisfaction, noting how the journalist wove the evidence into an undeniable tale of corruption and deceit. His phone rang. It's Michael, hitting all major outlets. Victor's dad just called an emergency board meeting. Our contact at the paper says more stories are queued up, the tip line's exploding. Seems everyone has a Victor Lang tale to tell. Jonathan checked his email, a message from his lawyer confirming the restraining order was granted not just against Victor, but Elizabeth too. The evidence of Victor's violence combined with Elizabeth enabling it had swayed the judge. Mr. Steele, his secretary's voice came over the intercom. A Ms. Hayes is here to see you. Jonathan raised an eyebrow. Rebecca Hayes. Elizabeth's ally stepping into his territory. Send her in. Rebecca entered his office with less confidence than usual. Her designer outfit and flawless makeup couldn't hide the worry in her eyes. Ms. Hayes. Jonathan gestured to a chair. What brings the president of the Maple Ridge Social Club to my humble auto shop? You know why I'm here? She sat composing herself carefully. Things have spiraled out of control. Have they? I thought this was what you wanted, drama scandal, something to gossip about over lunch. Rebecca's facade cracked slightly. This isn't a game, Jonathan. Victor's dad is bringing in lawyers. There's talk of criminal charges. Funny how consequences work, isn't it? Jonathan leaned back. Actions have them, even yours. I never meant to help a man who attacked your daughter spread lies about abuse to try and wreck your reputation. His voice stayed calm, but his eyes blazed. Which part? Didn't you mean aiding the guy who assaulted my kid, circulating rumors, painting me as the villain? She swallowed hard. Elizabeth said it was just an affair that she needed support leaving an unhappy marriage. I didn't know about Victor's violence, about what happened with Sophia, but you knew enough to start the rumors to cast me as the bad guy. Jonathan stood, moving to the window. Tell me, does your husband know about the funds you've been shifting through those offshore accounts? Rebecca paled. How did I have friends too, Rebecca? Friends who know how to uncover what people hide. He turned back. So here's the deal. You'll publicly retract your statements, admit you were mistaken, and then tell me everything you know about Elizabeth's plans. She'll never forgive me. That's not my concern. Jonathan sat again, his presence filling the room. Your choice is simple. Help me or I start sharing what I know about your financial dealings. Rebecca's hands shook as she reached for her purse. She's desperate. She's been meeting with Victor's dad, trying to convince him to use his influence to halt the probe. But it's not working. Victor, he's unraveling. He talks about making you pay, about teaching you a lesson. Jonathan's expression didn't shift. And what do you think of his odds, I think? Rebecca met his eyes for the first time. I think Elizabeth never grasped what she had, what she threw away. She thought you were simple, controllable. She was wrong. Yes, she was. Jonathan stood, ending the meeting. I expect your retraction by tonight, and Rebecca, choose your friends more wisely going forward. After she left, Jonathan called Michael. The Spiders switching sides. Prep for Phase 2. That afternoon, local news sites started running Rebecca's statement. She expressed deep regret for misunderstanding the situation, praised Jonathan's character, and hinted at darker truths about Victor and Elizabeth. Social media erupted with comments, and Jonathan watched as Elizabeth's crafted narrative began to crumble. Elizabeth's rage came in a flurry of texts. "How dare you threaten Rebecca? You're destroying everything!" Jonathan read them without replying, focusing instead on an email from his investigator. They'd found more irregularities in Victor's deals, enough to ensure the probe wouldn't fizzle soon. His phone buzzed again. Michael. Victor's dad just held a press conference. He's throwing his son under the bus, claiming no knowledge of the fraudulent contracts, and Victor's not handling it well. He tried crashing the conference, had to be physically removed. He was ranting about betrayal, about making people pay. Jonathan smiled grimly. Keep security tight. He'll try something soon. Already on it. How's Sophia holding up? Better. The counselor says she's processing well. Jonathan's voice softened at his daughter's mention. She's stronger than anyone knew. The day blurred with work and strategic moves. Jonathan met his lawyer, reviewed home and shop security footage, and kept gathering evidence. Each piece was another nail in Victor and Elizabeth's reputational coffins. That evening, as he worked late in the shop, he got another call, this time from Victor himself. "You think you're so clever?" Victor slurred. "Think you've won drinking solo, Victor?" "Not very professional. I built this company. My dad can't just discard me." Jonathan set down his tools, giving the call full attention. "You built nothing. You cheated, lied, stole. Now you're facing the fallout." "Fallout," Victor laughed bitterly. "I'll show you fallout. You think you're untouchable in your little shop? Think again. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You took everything from Minnow. I'll return the favor." Jonathan recorded the call, his face hardening. "You already tried taking everything from me, Victor. You invaded my home, threatened my daughter, tried ruining my reputation. How'd that turn out? This isn't over." "You're right." Jonathan's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "It's not over until I say so. And Victor, I'm just getting started." He ended the call and immediately dialed Michael. "Victor's issuing threats, drunk, unstable. Want me to send guys to watch him? No, leave him. Come. He won't resist trying something dramatic." Jonathan began closing up. "Just double Sophia's security. Already done. You sure about this? Men like Victor can't handle losing. He'll try proving he's still powerful, still in control." Jonathan locked the shop door, and when he does, we'll be ready. He drove home through Maple Ridge's quiet streets, his mind plotting the next moves in this revenge chess game. Victor's threat wasn't a surprise. It was an opportunity, another chance to show everyone what happens when you underestimate Jonathan Iron Fist Steele. The attack came 3 days later. Jonathan was working late, as he had every night since Victor's threat. The shop was quiet except for tool sounds and soft radio music. The first sign of trouble was the power cutting, plunging everything into darkness. Jonathan didn't move or call out. He'd been expecting this. Heavy footsteps approached from multiple directions, at least 3 men trying to be stealthy but unfamiliar with the layout. Jonathan moved silently between workbenches, his feet navigating paths etched in muscle memory. "Check the office," a rough voice whispered. "Boss says he's usually there." Jonathan allowed a small smile in the dark. Victor had hired pros, but they'd made a fatal error. They'd entered his domain where he knew every inch by feel. A flashlight beam sliced the darkness, sweeping past his position. He counted footsteps, tracking locations. 1 man headed to the office, another to storage, the third toward him. The beam swung again, and Jonathan struck. His fist hit the first man's throat, silencing any alert. As the man dropped, Jonathan caught the flashlight before it clattered. Jimmy, one of the others, called softly. "You good, Jonathan?" Flashed the light once, an apparent signal. Footsteps neared, and he waited until the second man was almost upon him before attacking. This one fell with a muffled grunt, but it alerted the third. "We've got company." The last attacker fired bullets, splintering metal where Jonathan had been seconds ago. Jonathan ghosted through his shop, using familiar obstacles to his advantage. He heard the attacker's rapid breathing, uncertain shuffles. This one was scared now, realizing the plan had gone wrong. "Where are you?" the man demanded, gun sweeping wildly. "Right here," Jonathan's voice came from behind. Before the man could turn, Jonathan had him in a chokehold. "Tell Victor he'll need to do better than this." The man struggled, then went limp. Jonathan held a few more seconds before letting him slump. Lights flooded the shop as Michael flipped the power back. He stood in the doorway, phone in hand. "Got it all on camera," Michael said, stepping over an unconscious man. "Police are 3 minutes out." Jonathan nodded, surveying the scene. "Check their phones. I want to know who hired them." They worked fast, collecting evidence. The men carried no ID. but their phones told the story text from a burner number payment details instructions for the hit. Police sirens wailed as Michael held up a phone. Look, they were supposed to rough you up, take pics, make it look like you struck first. Victor's desperate. Police arrived and Jonathan gave his statement. Footage from Michael's hidden cameras showed the entire assault, leaving no doubt who was victim and aggressor. As officers led the attackers away, Detective Sarah Chen pulled Jonathan aside. Mr. Steele, this is the second incident involving you and Victor Lang. Care to tell me what's really going on? Check their employment records, Jonathan suggested, and maybe see who's been paying them. The detective's eyes narrowed. You're awfully calm for someone who just survived an attack. I'm a simple guy, detective. I just want to protect my family and run my business. Simple guys don't usually have pro-security systems and military-grade surveillance, she gestured to Michael's cameras, or friends with tactical training. Jonathan met her gaze steadily. In my experience, detective, it's better to be prepared. After police left, Michael helped Jonathan clean up. Victor won't take this well. No, he won't. Jonathan picked up a shattered metal piece from a custom order, but he just gave us exactly what we needed. The next morning, Jonathan sat in his lawyer's office reviewing the police report. James Morrison spread photos across his desk. This is gold, Morrison said. With the restraining order in place, this attack proves Victor's escalating. We can push for charges. What about his dad's influence? Morrison smiled. That's the beauty. The old man's already distancing himself from Victor. He won't risk his rep by interfering. Jonathan's phone buzzed with a text from Elizabeth. This has to stop. Please, before someone gets hurt. He showed Morrison. Add this to the evidence, shows she knows about Victor's schemes. You're really taking them both down, aren't you? They brought violence into my home, Jonathan said simply. Threatened my daughter. Actions have consequences. Later that day, Jonathan had an unexpected visitor at the shop. Rebecca returned looking more distressed than last time. I have something you need to see. She placed a USB drive on his desk. Elizabeth's been recording her talks with Victor, planning how to ruin you, but this latest attack, it's too far. Jonathan picked up the drive. Why give me this? Because I was wrong about you, about her. Rebecca hugged herself. What they're doing isn't right, and I want no part. Jonathan studied her a moment. No turning back from this, Rebecca. Elizabeth will know you betrayed her. I know. She stood taller. But I have to live with myself. After she left, Jonathan reviewed the recordings. Elizabeth's voice cold and calculating, discussing ways to destroy him. Victor's drunken rants about payback, plans, schemes, manipulations, all laid bare. He called Michael. Get these to Detective Chen and call Morrison. We're ready for the final phase. You sure? Michael asked. Once we pull this trigger, they had their chances to back off. Jonathan said. Time to end it. The next day, Jonathan drove to Elizabeth's hotel. She met him in the lobby, her usual poise shaken by dark circles under her eyes. Come to gloat, she asked. Neil came to give you one last chance. He placed a document on the table between them. Sign the divorce papers. Walk away. Take what's left of your reputation and vanish. Or what? Or tomorrow everything comes out, the affair, the fraud, your role in Victor's attack. He stood. Your choice. You'd really destroy me after all we had. Jonathan looked at her, seeing not the woman he'd loved, but the manipulator she'd always been. You destroyed us the moment you chose him over our family. I'm just finishing what you started. He left her staring at the papers. In his truck, he called Morrison. Be ready. Whatever she chooses tomorrow, we release it all. It'll be nuclear. Morrison warned. No going back. Good. Jonathan started the engine. Sometimes the only way forward is through the fire. He drove home to Sophia, to their quiet dinner, to the solace of his shop. Tomorrow would bring chaos, but tonight he took satisfaction in knowing justice was coming. The iron fist was about to strike one last time, and this blow would shatter everything Victor and Elizabeth had built on lies. Sophia sat at her desk trying to focus on homework when the text arrived. I need to see you. Your mom loves you. Mom. She showed it to Jonathan at her doorway. She won't stop, will she? No, Jonathan said gently but firmly. But it's your call if you want to see her. Sophia stared at the message. I want to know why she let him hurt me. Jonathan's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Then meet her, but not alone. The meeting was set at a local cafe. Jonathan watched from his truck across the street as Sophia walked in. Michael sat in another vehicle, ready to intervene if needed. Elizabeth was waiting, her designer clothes and perfect makeup contrasting her haunted look. She stood as Sophia approached, arms out for a hug. Sophia didn't return. Baby. I've missed you so much, Elizabeth said, sinking back into her chair. Don't call me that. Sophia's voice was steel learned from her dad. What do you want? I want you to understand your dad isn't who you think. The things he's doing to Victor, to me, you mean exposing the truth. Sophia's green eyes, so like her father's, blazed. The fraud, the lies? Or do you mean stopping Victor from attacking him? That's not, you don't get it. Victor was just upset. Your dad provoked him. Provoked him? Sophia's laugh was cold, like I provoked him when he tried to touch me, when he threatened to teach me obedience. Elizabeth winced. He didn't mean, yes he didn't, you let him. Sophia leaned forward. You brought that monster into our home. You watched him threaten me, and now you're defending him. Sophia, please, your dad is turning you against me. He's poisoning you with lies. Dad didn't have to say a thing. I saw it all myself. Sophia placed her hands flat on the table. I saw how Victor treated me. I saw how you chose him over us. I saw how you tried to trash Dad's reputation when he protected me. That's not fair. I'm your mother. No. Sophia's voice dropped to a whisper. A mother protects her child. A mother doesn't let anyone hurt her daughter. You're just the woman who gave birth to me. She stood to leave, but Elizabeth grabbed her arm. You can't talk to me like that. I raised you. Dad raised me. Sophia pulled free. He taught me about strength, loyalty, standing up to people who try to hurt you. What did you teach me, Mom? How to lie. How to betray those who love you. Elizabeth's face hardened. You're just like him, cold, unforgiving. Thank you. Sophia smiled, and in that moment she looked exactly like Jonathan. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. She walked out, leaving Elizabeth staring after. Outside, she climbed into Jonathan's truck, tears finally falling. You okay? He asked softly. She tried to make me hate you. Sophia wiped her eyes, said you were destroying everything. Jonathan started the engine. What do you think? I think, Sophia straightened. I think she never really knew you at all, the real you. Before Jonathan could respond, his phone buzzed. Michael's voice. Victor just pulled up. He's heading into the cafe. Jonathan watched through the windshield as Victor stormed in, his expensive suit, wrinkled face flushed with rage. Stay here, Jonathan ordered, reaching for the door. Dad, no. Sophia grabbed his arm. He's trying to provoke you, to make you look violent in public. Jonathan paused, studying the scene. Victor was causing a spectacle, other customers pulling out phones to record. You're right, he said, settling back. Let him show everyone who he really is. They watched as Elizabeth tried calming Victor, while cafe staff called security as Victor's mask of sophistication crumbled completely. When police arrived, Victor was still ranting, pointing at Jonathan's truck and issuing threats everyone could hear. That's the last time he'll threaten us in public, Jonathan said as Victor was led away in cuffs. Or private. What now? Jonathan pulled out his phone, dialing his lawyer. Now we end this, all of it. Later that night, Jonathan worked in his shop preparing for what he knew would come. Victor, out on bail, wouldn't stand for this humiliation. He'd try one last desperate move. The silent security alarm pulsed on Jonathan's phone. Right on time. He moved into position, watching via security feeds as Victor crept around the building. This time alone, no hired thugs, no backup, just a desperate man with nothing left. The back door opened quietly. Victor must have gotten a key copy from Elizabeth. Jonathan waited in shadows, letting Victor venture deeper. I know you're here, Victor called. Face me like a man, like you faced my daughter. Jonathan's voice echoed through the space. Or like you faced me with hired goons. Victor spun, gun shaking in his hand. You ruined everything. No, Victor, you did that yourself. Jonathan stepped into view, empty hands raised. Look at you now, the great Victor Lang breaking in, waving a gun. What would your dad think? Shut up. Victor's face twisted. My dad abandoned me because of you. My business is gone because of you. Your dad abandoned you because you're a fraud. Your business is gone because you're a criminal. Jonathan took a step forward. And now you're here proving everything I said about you was true. The gun wavered. Stay back. Or what, shoot me'd murder to your charges? Another step. Go ahead, show everyone exactly who you are. Victor's finger tightened on the trigger, but Jonathan was already moving. The gun fired bullets splintering metal as Jonathan closed the distance. His fist connected with Victor's jaw, sending him staggering back. The gun clattered away as Victor swung wildly, his businessman's hands no match for Jonathan's calloused ones. Each punch was precise, calculated, breaking down Victor's defenses until he slumped against a workbench. "Please," Victor gasped, blood streaming from his nose. "Don't kill me." Jonathan picked up the gun, emptying the magazine. "I'm not killing you, Victor. I'm letting you live to see everything you built turn to ash, live to watch from a prison cell as your name becomes synonymous with fraud and corruption." Police sirens wailed. The silent alarm had worked. Security cameras captured everything Jonathan said, zip-tying Victor's hands. The break-in, the gun, your confession, it's over. As police led Victor away for the second time that day, Detective Chen approached Jonathan. "You knew he'd come. Men like Victor are predictable. They can't stand losing control." She nodded toward the shop. "You could have killed him, would have been justified him having a gun. Death would be too easy." Jonathan watched Victor being loaded into a squad car. "I want him to live with what he's lost, just like he wanted from me." Headlines dominated local news for days. Investment mogul arrested in armed assault. Lang empire crumbles. Full probe launched. Society wife's affair sparks criminal conspiracy. Elizabeth sat in her hotel room watching her world implode on multiple screens. Her phone buzzed constantly. Reporters, former friends, lawyers demanding answers. Rebecca had publicly denounced her sharing details of Elizabeth's manipulations and lies. A knock made her jump. The hotel manager stood there, apologetic but firm. "Sorry, Mrs. Steele, but your credit cards are declined. We'll need another payment method." She tried card after card. All rejected accounts frozen pending investigation into her role in Victor's crimes. The manager's sympathy turned to awkwardness as she was escorted out, designer luggage piled into a taxi with nowhere to go. Across town, Jonathan sat in a press conference, lawyer beside him. Reporters fired questions about Victor's attack, corruption evidence, Elizabeth's involvement. "Mr. Steele, how long have you known about Mr. Lang's illegal activities?" "I knew Victor Lang was corrupt the instant he threatened my daughter." Jonathan replied, his voice carrying through the room. "The fraudulent contracts, the deceit, the violence, it's all part of who he is, who they both are," referring to your ex-wife. "Ex-wife," Jonathan corrected. "Elizabeth chose to side with a criminal. She chose to back him when he threatened a child. Everything happening now is the result of those choices." Questions continued, but Jonathan stayed composed, letting evidence speak. Recordings from Rebecca fraud docs, security footage of Victor's attacks painted an irrefutable picture of corruption and betrayal. After the conference, Michael waited in the parking lot. Elizabeth got evicted from her hotel. "She's trying to contact her family. They won't help," Jonathan said, loosening his tie. "Not after what came out about their foundation's ties to Victor's fraud. You really thought of everything. They brought this fight to my family." Jonathan climbed into his truck. "I just finished it." Later that week, Jonathan had an unexpected visitor at his shop. Victor's father, Richard Lang Sr., stood in the doorway, looking older than his years. "Come to threaten me?" Jonathan asked, not pausing his work. "No." Richard stepped in, examining a half-finished restoration. "Came to understand the man who took down my empire. Your son did that. I just exposed the truth." "The truth?" Richard laughed bitterly. "The truth is, I knew about the fraud, the kickbacks, all of it. I chose to ignore it because he was my son. And now I salvage what's left of my company's reputation, distance myself from my own blood." Richard turned to Jonathan. "You're a father. You understand the cost. I understand protecting your child." Jonathan set down his tools. "But Victor's no child. He's a predator who tried hurting my daughter. The cost of that is always everything." Richard nodded slowly. "You're a tougher man than me, Mr. Steele. I let love blind me to my son's crimes. You let love drive your justice." "Justice?" Jonathan picked up his tools again. "This isn't justice, Mr. Lang. This is consequences." After Richard left, Jonathan checked his mail, a letter from Victor Lang. He considered tossing it unopened, but decided against it. The past held no power over him anymore. Inside was a simple note. Mr. Steele, I don't expect forgiveness, nor do I deserve it. But as I prepare to re-enter society, I wanted you to know I understand what I destroyed. Not just my life, but a family's trust and safety. My actions were unforgivable, especially toward Sophia. I've spent these years trying to become someone different from the man who did those things." Victor L. Jonathan shared the letter with Sophia over dinner. She read it silently, her expression thoughtful. "Do you believe him?" "I believe people can change," Jonathan replied, "but that doesn't mean we're owed forgiveness. I saw Mom today," Sophia said quietly. At the grocery store, she looked small different. You okay? Yeah, Sophia smiled. Know what I felt seeing her? Nothing. No anger, no pain. She's just someone who used to be in our lives. Jonathan understood perfectly. They'd built something too strong to be haunted by old wounds. Weeks turned to months. Victor's trial made daily headlines bringing fresh revelations of corruption and violence. He sat in court polish and charm stripped, revealing the empty shell beneath. Elizabeth's social circle collapsed. No more galas, no charity boards, no influential friends. Her attempts to rebuild her reputation failed as more people came forward with tales of her manipulation and cruelty. Jonathan focused on his work. His daughter, the simple life that had once seemed insufficient to his ex-wife. His business thrived, built on a reputation for honesty and skill that even Elizabeth's lies couldn't tarnish. One evening, as he and Sophia worked together in the shop, she asked, "Do you ever regret it taking them down so completely?" Jonathan considered running his hand along a piece of metal's grain. "Remember what I taught you about working with machinery? You have to respect its nature, work with its strengths, not against them. People are the same. Victor and your mom showed us who they really were. I just made sure everyone else saw it too." Sophia nodded, understanding in her eyes, like revealing the essence in the metal. "You didn't change it, you just brought out what was already there." "Exactly." Jonathan watched her work, pride filling his chest. They chose their path. All I did was ensure they walked it to the end. The legal proceedings ended with Victor facing years in prison for fraud, assault, and attempted murder. His father's company survived, but the Lang name became synonymous with corruption in Maple Ridge. Elizabeth left town quietly, her salvage efforts in ruins. Last, Jonathan heard she'd moved cross-country trying to rebuild among strangers unaware of her past. For Jonathan and Sophia, they found peace in their shop, their home, the honest labor of creating fine things. The betrayal had changed them, but not as their enemies intended. Instead of breaking them, it revealed their strength, resilience, unbreakable bond. One day, a customer examined a finished piece in Jonathan's showroom. "I heard about what happened," she said. "About your ex-wife and that investor. Must have been tough going through that." Jonathan ran his hand along the restoration he'd crafted, feeling the strength in the metal. "Life's like machinery," he said. "The strongest pieces are the ones that have been tested. You just need to know how to work with what you're given." The customer nodded, grasping the deeper meaning. "And now we build something new." Jonathan looked through the window to where Sophia worked in the shop, her movements sure and confident. Something better. He'd learned that revenge done right wasn't about violence or rage. It was about patience, understanding your opponent's nature, letting them reveal their true selves to the world. In the end, Jonathan Iron Fist Steel hadn't needed to destroy Victor and Elizabeth. He'd simply created the conditions for them to destroy themselves, their own actions becoming the tool of their downfall. As he worked in his shop each day, creating beauty from raw metal, he knew he'd chosen the right path. Not endless vengeance, but building better from betrayal's wreckage. The hope chest would hold Sophia's treasures, just as their shop held their shared legacy. A legacy not of bitterness or revenge, but creation, growth, turning raw materials into something fine and lasting. 5 years later, Jonathan stood in his expanded shop, now triple its original size, watching apprentices work under Sophia's supervision. His 20-year-old daughter moved between stations with confidence, her trained eye catching details others might miss. "The grain pattern needs to flow naturally," she instructed a young worker. "Remember what my dad taught us, we don't force the metal, we reveal its character." Jonathan smiled, pride warming his chest. After high school, Sophia had chosen to join the family business full-time, bringing fresh ideas and modern techniques while honoring the traditional skills he'd taught her. Under their joint leadership, Steel Auto Repair had grown from a local outfit to a nationally recognized brand known for quality and integrity. Michael entered through the back door, still in his garage gear. Latest shipment of parts just arrived. "Quality looks solid. How's the expansion going?" Jonathan asked, referring to Forge's garage, now Maple Ridge's top auto service center. "Can't keep up with demand." Michael grinned, thinking of opening a second location across town. He hesitated, then added, "Heard some news you might want to know." Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, Victor's up for parole next month." The name brought no emotional stir for Jonathan now. Victor Lang was a footnote in his life, a cautionary tale of pride and corruption. How many years has it been? 5 since the conviction. He served the minimum for good behavior. Michael watched his friend carefully. Word is he's changed, found religion in prison, lead support groups, the whole redemption arc. Good for him. Jonathan meant it. He'd let go of the anger years ago, focusing on building positives from betrayal's ashes. There's more, Michael continued. Elizabeth's back in town. This news did make Jonathan pause his work. Why? Her dad passed last month. She's here for the estate settlement. Been trying to rebuild bridges with her old social circle, but Michael shrugged. Memories linger in small towns. Jonathan nodded, returning to his task. 5 years had changed everything. The scandal that shook Maple Ridge had faded to local lore, a story told about pride and consequences. Victor's dad had retired, handing his reformed company to new leadership. Rebecca Hayes had divorced her husband after the offshore account scandal, reinventing herself as an advocate for financial transparency and charities. Dad. Sophia approached, wiping grease from her hands. The Johnson Commission is ready for final approval. Want to take a look? They walked together to a magnificent custom build dominating one corner of the shop. Sophia had designed it herself, blending her dad's style with her own modern touches. Beautiful work, Jonathan said, running his hand along the edge. You've surpassed your teacher. Never, she smiled, but I learned from the best about auto repair and about life. Later that evening, as Jonathan locked up, he spotted a familiar figure across the street. Elizabeth stood in the fading light. Her designer clothes still impeccable, but her face bearing the weight of years and regret. Their eyes met briefly before she turned away, hurrying to her rental car. At home, Jonathan found an envelope in his mail, a letter from Victor Lang. He considered tossing it unopened but decided against it. The past held no power over him anymore. Inside was a simple note: Mr. Steele, I don't expect forgiveness. Nor do I deserve it, but as I prepare to re-enter society, I wanted you to know I understand what I destroyed. Not just my life, but a family's trust and safety. My actions were unforgivable, especially toward Sophia. I've spent these years trying to become someone different from the man who did those things. Victor L. Jonathan shared the letter with Sophia over dinner. She read it silently, her expression thoughtful. Do you believe him? I believe people can change, Jonathan replied. But that doesn't mean we're owed forgiveness. I saw Mom today, Sophia said quietly, at the grocery store. She looked small different. You okay? Yeah, Sophia smiled. Know what I felt seeing her, but the saying, no anger, no pain. She's just someone who used to be in our lives. Jonathan understood perfectly. They'd built something too strong to be haunted by old wounds. The next morning, Jonathan arrived early to find another familiar face waiting. Richard Lang Sr., Victor's father. Been following your company's growth, the older man said without preamble. You've built something impressive here. What do you want? Richard, Victor's parole hearing is next month. He's asked about making amends. No. Jonathan's voice was firm but not unkind. Whatever redemption Victor's seeking, he needs to find it without involving my family. Richard nodded, seeming to expect this. You know I never thanked you. For what? For stopping him. For exposing everything. If you hadn't. Richard sighed. He might have destroyed himself completely. Prison gave him boundaries, consequences, things I never did. After he left, Jonathan worked on a special project, a hope chest he was creating for Sophia's upcoming wedding. She'd met James, a local architect, 2 years ago. Unlike Elizabeth, James understood and appreciated the value of craftsmanship, of building something real and lasting. Michael stopped by around lunch, bearing news as usual. Elizabeth tried joining the hospital charity board. They turned her down flat. Rebecca's on the committee now. Apparently she gave quite a speech about learning from past mistakes and protecting the organization's integrity. Jonathan chuckled. The spider has changed her ways, using her networking skills now to protect rather than destroy. Life's funny, Michael mused. 5 years ago, we were plotting revenge. Now look at us business owners, community leaders. You've got a daughter getting married. I've got 2 new locations opening. We won. It was never about winning. Jonathan replied carefully, fitting a joint. It was about building something true. That evening, as Jonathan and Sophia worked late in the shop, a young apprentice asked about the shop's name change. The sign outside now read, Steele and Daughter Auto Repair. People said I should keep my options open. Sophia explained, sharing a smile with her dad. Maybe college, see the world. But I already knew where I belonged. This isn't just a business, it's a legacy of honesty, quality, doing things right. The following week brought an invitation to speak at the local business college on entrepreneurship and ethics. Jonathan had become a local legend not for the scandal, but how he'd handled it. Students wanted to hear about maintaining integrity amid adversity, building a business on principles over pure profit. During the lecture, a student asked about forgiveness and second chances in business. "Forgiveness is personal," Jonathan answered. "But trust is earned through actions, not words. The same principles apply whether you're repairing cars or rebuilding a reputation. You can't cut corners, can't fake quality, people see through it eventually." After the lecture, Jonathan drove past the old Lang building, now housing a tech startup. Victor's empire had crumbled, but something new and potentially better had risen in its place. It was the way of things, destruction and renewal, breaking down and building up. At home, he found an invitation reviewing wedding plans. The ceremony would be in the shop. Sophia's choice, surrounded by the tools and creations that shaped their lives. "James and I want to build our own pieces," she announced, "for our home together." Jonathan nodded, understanding the symbolism. "I'll teach him if he's willing to learn." "He is." Sophia smiled. "He says he wants to understand what makes us who we are, not just the craftsmanship, but the principles behind it." Later that night, Jonathan sat alone in the shop, working on Sophia's hope chest. Each piece of metal carefully chosen, each joint perfectly fitted. It would be his wedding gift to her, not just a beautiful item, but a symbol of all they'd built together. He thought about the changes 5 years had brought: Victor finding purpose in prison, Elizabeth learning to live with her choices' consequences, Rebecca redirecting her talents positively, even Richard Lang finally facing his role in his son's downfall. But the most important changes were closer to home: his bond with Sophia, strengthened through hardship, their business flourishing on a foundation of trust and quality. They'd taken life's worst and crafted beauty from it. The hope chest was nearly complete. Jonathan ran his hands over the smooth surface, feeling the strength in its joints, the character in its grain. Like their lives, it was built to last, growing more beautiful with time and care. Next week, Victor's parole hearing would happen. Elizabeth would eventually leave town again. Life would go on. But here in his shop, surrounded by evidence of his life's work, Jonathan knew he'd chosen the right path. Not endless revenge, but building better from betrayal's wreckage. The hope chest would hold Sophia's treasures, just as their shop held their shared legacy. A legacy not of bitterness or vengeance, but creation, growth, turning raw materials into something fine and lasting. As Jonathan added the final touches, he reflected on the lessons learned and taught. True strength isn't in destroying, but in building, not in holding anger, but in crafting something too beautiful for anger to touch. From this story, we learn that loyalty and justice always prevail, and from suffering, we can forge a stronger future grounded in family strength and authentic values.